If you want to dominate the draft in Teamfight Manager 2, pay attention because this game is decided long before the fight even begins. Today, I'm going to show you 10 secrets that helped me out a lot and gave me an absurd advantage right at the start. So stick with me until the end because this video can definitely help you out. The first secret to dominating the draft in Teamfight Manager 2 is understanding the power of first pick on the blue side. When you start with the first choice, I honestly think it's a mistake to just ban the S-tier champions of the patch without giving it much thought, because sometimes you are just helping the opponent organize their own draft. The smartest move, in my view, is to leave these monsters open for a moment and force the other side to waste bans or reveal early what they want to protect. What I like most about this idea is that it turns the draft into a mental trap. If the rival wastes too many bans trying to wipe out the best picks, they lose freedom. If they don't, you can simply grab that broken champion right on the first pick. In a game like Teamfight Manager 2, where the draft order carries a lot of weight, this initial pressure is worth gold. And there's more. The game heavily rewards flexible blind picks, so the first pick isn't just for grabbing the most obvious champion, but also for building a foundation that won't easily collapse later. I see this as a way to dictate the tempo of the match before it even begins, because you force the adversary to respond to your plan instead of playing comfortably within their own. Ultimately, the secret isn't banning the strongest, but rather using the fear of the strong meta to your advantage. When you have the first pick, you aren't just choosing a champion, you are choosing the type of pressure the opponent will feel throughout the entire draft. And that difference completely changes how I approach every ban and every pick in Teamfight Manager 2. We are advancing for number 2. Any of those programming related to the ad or of the development of sensation will teach you to repeat the sensation for many viewers. There are some times you are personally subject to your range, and related to the ad of repeated campaign and deceptination will teach you to do a quick and first practice on some campaigns. On the red side, you play by reacting to what the other side lets through, so the final bans become your tool to cut out the most dangerous remaining options. In Teamfight Manager 2, as in other competitive drafts, the side with the first choice usually exerts more pressure with strong champions, while the red side gains value precisely by denying power picks and preparing counters. I would put it in a very practical way. When I'm on the red side, I don't waste a ban out of habit. I use it based on actual threat. If a highly powerful champion survived the first phase, they can become the center of the match because the opponent still has the last pick and the capacity to slot in a counter. Therefore, banning these survivors is usually more important than spreading bans across mediocre options. The detail that makes this secret work is understanding that drafting isn't just about brute force, but about choice order. The red side can turn a priority disadvantage into a tactical advantage, provided that the bans remove exactly what the enemy wanted to protect for their last pick or for a highly oppressive composition. The right mindset is simple. Leaving the most dangerous champions breathing in the draft is gifting away the chance of having the game taken from you. And that is exactly the mistake a good red side does not make. Most players open the game's general win rate list and treat it like a Bible. But look, that list is a lie disguised as data. It shows you what is working overall, not what will work against that specific opponent at that moment in that league. You make decisions based on statistics that might not even reflect the current meta of your match. That is where the analyst on your coaching staff comes in. This person isn't just staff decoration. When you hire a high-level analyst, they start revealing information that is absurdly valuable during the draft, such as solo kill probability, projected gold differential, and, most importantly, what the enemy AI is planning to prioritize. This transforms the draft from a guessing game into a conscious negotiation. You stop reacting and start anticipating. Against AI, this is even more powerful because the AI has patterns. It doesn't improvise. And when your analyst begins mapping these patterns and giving you concrete, real-time recommendations, you essentially start playing chess while the opponent is still learning the rules. In the hardest leagues, this information advantage can be the difference between assembling a synergetic team or losing the draft before the match even starts. So, the next time you go to hire staff, don't treat the analyst as a luxury purchase. Treat it as a fundamental strategic investment. A well-developed analyst doesn't tell you what the meta thinks is strong. They tell you what you need to ban, pick, or let through in that specific draft. And in Teamfight Manager 2, information is power. If there is one secret that truly changes the game in the draft, it's understanding that nothing there is random. Everything revolves around a well-defined triangle of archetypes. And when you see this, drafting stops being trial and error and becomes almost like a game of chess. You start predicting what the adversary wants to do, and you already enter with the answer ready, instead of just picking strong characters in isolation. Basically, the game functions like a classic rock, paper, scissors. Engaged compositions are those that want to go all in, force fights, and decide things quickly. And these destroy wave clear teams because they don't give the adversary time to control the lane or hold pressure. If you've ever played trying only to clear waves and stall the game against an aggressive team, you know exactly how fast things go downhill. Now, the other side of this is that wave clear isn't weak. It just has the right target. Teams focused on clearing waves shine against stall compositions, those that want to drag things out, scale, or win through attrition. Wave clear simply doesn't let the game freeze up, maintains constant pressure, and prevents the adversary's slow plan from working. It's that type of draft that seems safe, but is actually extremely oppressive when properly executed. And that closes the cycle. Stall compositions wipe out engage, because the engaged team needs clean and fast execution, and stall breaks exactly that. Sustain, control, defensive tools. All of this drags out the fight until the engage loses its impact. When you internalize this triangle, the draft changes completely. You stop thinking, which is the best champion, and start thinking, which type of comp beats what they are building. That is when the game truly begins to open up in front of you. There is a detail in the draft that seems simple, but when you truly understand it, it completely changes your game. Your player's main champions are not just a strength, they are a tool for manipulation. When you specialize a player in a champion, that 20% to 30% attribute bonus is absurd. It's the kind of advantage that wins matches on its own if it gets through the draft. Except there is a catch that a lot of people ignore. The adversary knows this too. In other words, it's not just a buff, it's public information. And any public information can be used against you or in your favor. That is where the malice comes in. Instead of blindly relying on that champion, you start using it as bait. You show the adversary, look, if this gets through, you lose. And most of the time, the AI will respond by banning that pick. Except, while it is busy removing your most obvious threat, you are freeing up space for other strong choices that might be even more important for your composition. And when you start thinking like this, drafting stops being just about building the strongest team possible and becomes a psychological game. You are influencing what the enemy does before they even act. Specializing players remain strong, of course, but the true value lies in how it forces decisions on the other side. And mastering this is the kind of thing that separates those who play well from those who actually control the draft. The one executing the plays is the AI. And the AI is not perfect. It makes mistakes, especially when it needs to handle more complex mechanics. So, if you keep choosing champions that require absurd precision, you are basically trusting the outcome of the match to inconsistent decisions. Because of this, exploiting brain-dead champions isn't about being simple, it's about being efficient. Tanks with constant damage, straightforward initiators like the cavalry, or any pick that has a clear and easy-to-execute game plan tend to perform much better in practice. They don't rely on perfect timing, they don't demand complicated micro, and above all, they don't punish you as hard when the AI makes slightly warped decisions. I started noticing this when I watched theoretically incredible drafts simply fall apart in execution. The comp looked perfect on paper, full of synergies and beautiful combos, but in the match, the AI messed up positioning, engaged at the wrong time, or failed to exploit the right window. Meanwhile, the adversary came in with a dumber composition, but one that was extremely consistent, and they won because they did the basics well all the time. In the end, mastering the draft in Teamfight Manager 2 involves accepting this limitation of the game and playing into it. It's not about choosing the most complex or the most stylish option. It's about choosing what the AI can execute with consistency. When you understand this, your compositions start working for real, because you stop relying on perfect plays and start winning on the solid repetition of the basics. This one was one of those secrets that once it clicked for me completely changed the way I draft top lane in Teamfight Manager 2. The top lane isn't just another lane, it has a hidden advantage that a lot of people ignore. Health regeneration based on the champion's maximum health. It might seem like a small detail, but that 1% per second scales absurdly well with tankier champions. When you put a bruiser or a tank there, the guy simply refuses to leave the lane. He trades, recovers health, trades again, and the adversary starts losing space without even realizing it. It's the kind of silent advantage that, over the course of the match, turns into an inevitable snowball. And the most interesting part is that this transforms top into a practically self-sustainable lane. You don't need to invest as many resources there. While other lanes demand constant attention, a well-drafted top holds its own, gains pressure, and still forces the enemy to decide whether it's worth sending help, which opens up the map for you elsewhere. So, when I think about drafting today, top isn't where I throw just any okay option. I treat it as a strategic piece of stability. A champion with high health there doesn't just survive. They dominate simply by existing in that space. And when you start exploiting this on purpose, you realize you are playing the entire map with much more control. If there is one thing I've come to value immensely in the Teamfight Manager 2 draft, it's long-range crowd control. It seems like a detail at first, but in practice, it's what decides fights the most. It doesn't matter if your team has absurd damage. If you can't lock down the enemy at the right time, that damage simply doesn't connect. And when you have long-range CC, you basically dictate the rhythm of the match. The most interesting part is how this solves multiple problems at once. The AI doesn't always position its carries ideally, so having a support or jungler with a stun, slow, or any form of distance control acts as a safety net. It's that moment when the enemy tries to punish a mistake and takes a stun straight to the face before managing to do anything. Another thing that many people underestimate is its impact on objectives. Contests over Serpent or Morgard look completely different when you have the tools to zone or initiate from afar. You don't need to expose yourself. You don't need to force a risky entry. All it takes is landing a good CC, and the fight already starts under your control. This, to me, is one of the greatest silent advantages you can have. Drafting long-range CC is almost like guaranteeing consistency in all phases of the game. You initiate better, defend better, and even correct mistakes made by your own team. After I started prioritizing this in the jungle and support roles, my matches became much more stable. Not necessarily faster, but much more under control from start to finish. If there is one mistake I see a lot of people make in Teamfight Manager 2, it's playing as if the game were static. It isn't. The meta here changes all the time, and ignoring this is practically entering the draft already at a disadvantage. Game updates directly alter the numbers that truly matter: base damage, attack speed, ability efficiency. And it's not small adjustments either. Sometimes a simple buff transforms a champion nobody touched into a priority pick or ban. That choice that seemed like trash last week can turn into a real threat overnight. And that is exactly where you can gain an edge. While many people remain stuck in an old reading of the meta, you enter the draft already knowing what changed. Reading patch notes stops being optional and becomes a strategic tool. You start spotting opportunities before others do, whether by taking advantage of underrated buffs or avoiding the trap of picking recently nerfed champions. For me, this became a routine. Before any tournament or serious run, I take a look at the changes and adjust my mindset for the new scenario. Because at the end of the day, drafting isn't just about knowing what is strong. It's about knowing what just became strong. And whoever adapts fastest always comes out ahead. Stopping the habit of banning the strongest in the meta and starting to ban what destroys your game plan was a turning point for me. Because when you only follow tier lists, you are playing someone else's game. You are reacting to what is considered strong overall, instead of protecting what you are trying to build. And drafting in Teamfight Manager 2 isn't about choosing the best isolated characters. It's about setting up a clear win condition and ensuring it works. So the question changes completely: what stops my comp from functioning? If you are betting on a fragile carry, like a sniper or archer, it doesn't matter if there is another champion with a higher win rate available. What matters is removing those from the table who can burst that carry down. Ninja, Executioner, Demon, those are the bans that actually make a difference in that scenario. When you start thinking this way, your drafts become much more consistent. You stop losing to obvious counters and start forcing the game on your own terms. And in the end, that is what defines victory. It's not who grabbed the strongest character, it's who managed to play the way they wanted without being stopped.
But you're my new favorite.